Mr Chairman, I just wanted to just sort of perhaps clarify a few things, because I think anyone that was just listening in then might have quite a misconception of what this bill actually is. So we are talking about part-time work testing for those on the domestic purposes benefit when their youngest turns 6. Yeah, so part-time work testing, what we're asking them to do is be ready to look for work and then to be actively looking for work when it's there. No benefits will be cut, no changes will be made if they are actually stepping up and looking for work. So just to put some clarifications on that. The likeness to the US was actually completely misleading. So we're talking about part-time work testing for those that can find a job for those when their youngest is 6. So just to be clear on that sort of thing. The other thing that's been sort of listening to a bit tonight was about how when the jobs are there, the benefits all go down and it's fine and everything else. And certainly with the unemployment benefit, we saw that reduce in those best of times. We saw a very limited reduction in the DPB, and that was more about the working for families, and that's what saw a few thousand move off and actually see that be actually more accessible for them. But let's be quite clear on a couple of other things as well here. So there was an increase of 45% in that same period for the sickness benefit. So for a time when actually we were not getting sicker, so for a time when actually New Zealanders are starting to live longer, we have better access to healthcare, we have more technology that helps us keep well, we saw a 45% increase in those on the sickness benefit. In that same period, we saw the invalids benefit increase by 53%. So while we saw the unemployment benefit going down, we actually saw the sickness benefit increasing by 45% and the invalids benefit increasing by 53%. And one has to say there are issues there. We need to be looking at it and asking ourselves what we are doing for those people. So looking at how we can actually get some of those people well, if we're looking at what they can do instead of what they can't, focusing on actually the positive aspects of them as well, instead of just looking at that we will put you on a benefit, leave you alone and not look at you again. I want to give you some examples and give the House some examples, Mr Chairman, just on what happened with the sickness benefit. So in one work and income office that I was visiting, I was talking to the case manager who was responsible for sickness benefit, and she said, what I did a few weeks ago was I wrote to those whom the doctor had said could work part-time, and I invited them to come in and see me and talk about making a plan, what we might do to help them get into work longer term, the sorts of help they might need and what we could do, she said. So I sat down, individually wrote to all of those on the sickness benefit from that particular office who might be able to. Not a single one replied. And not a single one replied. So not a single one actually came and asked for that assistance. So what we are saying to people actually is reasonable, and actually it is fair, and we're saying to them, work closer with your case managers. We put on another 303 case managers within work and income since we have been there. We're saying let's work with you to concentrate on what you can do. When those jobs are there, let's make sure that you're putting your best foot forward. We've done work around CVs, work around actually making sure that you're presenting yourself as well as you can, and work with them to actually help them into jobs. And that is reasonable. If they are looking for work and are unable to find it, then their benefits will not be changed. Their benefits will not be changed. This is reasonable and this is fair. What we have heard a lot tonight in this debate is sort of things thrown out. A lot of stuff sort of about me, and that's all fine. I kind of like being talked about, but it just sort of interests me that actually I don't actually base policy decisions on personal experiences that I may or may not have had. But what I do is actually look at what I believe is best for New Zealanders and moving them forward and recognising what they can and actually what they can do. I don't sit here and try and throw sort of stones at other members as to what their personal situations were. Haven't done it in the past, and actually I'm not going to start now. What I will say, though, is to actually throw out comments like lazy and I don't know, a whole lot of the other derogatory comments. I just sort of blank them out because they are so nonsensical that I can't actually believe that they can sit there and think they can throw them around and believe that actually the public would think that they are actually what we're saying. So we constantly sort of hear those comments thrown out there around derogatory comments towards those that are receiving state assistance and benefits, and quite frankly, just do not buy into them at all. So if that's what other members want to start accusing other members of sort of saying about people and everything else, that's fine, but it's actually not true. Well, I could name 4 or 5 members from the Labour side who have, Mr Chairman, who have actually used those sorts of derogatory comments. And I just would say to you that actually they do not apply to members from this side of the House and what they actually want to do and what they want to say. So we're looking at some changes that will make a significant difference to those that are looking for assistance and help where they need it. What we are talking about doing, as well as we haven't talked much about the implementation of this bill when it becomes an act and how we do that, because that's actually what's significantly going to make a difference. So that interpretation of suitable work and what that means for people, that recognition that they will need more help with childcare. We're going to have to look at some of that home-based care for after school and how that happens. I think if we want to have a debate in this House that means something, how about we debate whether or not there should be some sort of allowance for those that are actually having childcare that they use informally and with family and with friends. But I don't hear any of that sort of stuff raised by the opposition. But it's something that actually I look at quite closely and is something that I think is quite a worthwhile debate to be having. Should we be recognising actually some of the informal care and how we actually work with people on that? When we're looking at people going into work and getting ahead in life, do we look at the types of jobs that might be suitable for them, how we can actually work with them when they're younger, still like 2 or 3 years old, starting to go into early childhood, getting them into that training, then they can get their child to school when they're 5, and then actually when they're sort of, by the time they're 6, they are really work ready and going there. That's the type of vision I have and why we sort of introduced this bill. So we recognise that on the 27th of September, when this is implemented, there are simply not going to be 42,000 part-time jobs for all of those that will be work tested, because it's called staging it in over a period of time and believing that these people can work towards getting a more fulfilling life and getting off benefits. And I absolutely categorically believe that it can happen. So what we're saying is we will work with 4,500 at any one time. We equally will start with those that have more recently been in the workforce, have qualifications that mean that they can move more easily into jobs. We'll also, though, work with some of those that are at the much harder end. So we're quite determined to wrap services around teen parents. I mean, we introduced a nearly $15 million package in the last budget, but we're equally getting case managers who will specifically be working with case managers who will be working specifically with teen parents, working with iwi actually in quite some situations on how we can actually wrap those sorts of services around them and help them get back into work. So actually the implementation of this is going to be most critical. The implementation of this bill will be the most important thing that we can do, and I don't hear any of that from the opposition. I don't hear that sort of concern coming through on how we stage this out, whom we help the most, how we make sure that we are addressing and getting to the areas that need it most. But there is a plan. It is one that will work, that will happen over time, and I think that this is a positive thing, and happy to take any other questions.
Sorry? Point of order, the Honourable Annette King.
I seek leave to table a speech from the Honourable Judith Collins, where she sets out her views about beneficiaries sitting around watching Sky TV, living off the taxpayer, letting their children run riot and getting stoned. Who was criticising beneficiaries?
Order. Leave is sought for that purpose. Is there any objection? There appears to be none. The document will be tabled.